Lastly, FinCity.Tokyo's Ambassador Emeritus, President of the European Business Council, Secretary General of the International Bankers Association of Japan, member of the board SMBC Trust Bank, Mr. Laurent Depus will be delivering closing remarks. Over to you, sir.
It's been
hard work.
Started this meeting by wishing everyone a warm welcome to Japan, and I don't really want to say sayonara, but it's the end of the day. It's been a long day. The weekend is just around the corner, so we will have to stop at some point. But I hope that you found today's various discussions interesting, and that they will encourage you to invest or invest more into Japan and its markets. Before anything else, I'd like to start by thanking all the experts who intervened throughout the day on stage, as well as the organizations who contributed to this event, and of course, I would be remiss if I did not thank you all for participating to this event. I heard that we had about 300 people online and up to 300 people in the room at any given time. I'm here today as an ambassador for FinCity.Tokyo, but when I'm not in this role, I am the Secretary General of the International Bankers Association and the President of the European Business Council. I'm from Belgium, hence my accent. Both those organizations represent the interests of foreign businesses in Japan. The IBA, in particular, is the only market association in Japan that represents most of the foreign financial institutions operating here across the entire investment scope of banks, securities, asset managers, wealth management, and private equity. The reason I point this out is that the IBA, which is more than 40 years old, has been a member of FinCity.Tokyo and a board member of FinCity.Tokyo ever since its first early days, because we supported Tokyo's pioneering efforts to make finance a key factor in solving societal issues. It is encouraging, in fact, to note that these efforts have been recognized to the point that, as you heard today, a large part of the initial FinCity agenda has become the country's official policy. So maybe let me remind you what is FinCity, even though probably a lot of you already know that, what it does and in what way it is efficient. Maybe next slide. So FinCity was established, as quick history, established in April 2019 under the leadership of Tokyo Governor Koike, who spoke to us this morning. It was then Japan's first public-private financial promotion organization. Today, we count approximately 60 members, including financial institutions, academia, service providers, market associations, the Japan Stock Exchange, and so forth. The association is chaired by Hiroshi Nakaso, whom you heard earlier. I'm not going to reintroduce Nakaso-san, who is a very respected figure in Japan and globally, but I will point out that he also is the chair of ABAC, that is the APEC Business Advisory Council, who gathered yesterday as part of this day and a half of seminars and talked about sustainable finance and voluntary carbon markets. Some of you were there yesterday and are still here today. In 2021, FinCity defined or redefined a clear action plan around 3 pillars: sustainable finance, fintech and innovation, and then asset management. You have heard about this before. Each of those pillars comes with its own sets of targets and support programs, and importantly, various financial incentives are offered to encourage the establishment in Japan of companies active in each sector. Again, you've heard about several of those programs today, Attraction U, or the green finance subsidy that was evoked a bit earlier. Next slide. This one talks about the mission of FinCity. The mission of FinCity is not just to lead promotional activities to raise Tokyo's profile as a global financial center. It is also, and quite importantly, to facilitate Japan's financial markets by exchanging views with all stakeholders, that's you, and to make policy recommendations to Japan's authorities. I mentioned policy recommendations, and maybe the best example of success in this area is when the central government adopts and develops the initial FinCity priorities. First under Prime Minister Kishida's impulse, and on today with the Ishiba administration. By now, you're all familiar with the words asset management nation or the doubling of income project. Those words, those concepts were actually instigated by the actions of FinCity. With this, Japan now benefits from an alignment of interests that we had not seen in decades. And this alignment has brought about the beginnings of a virtuous cycle. Finance is recognized as a key facilitator of the country's economic transformation, and in this area, the government has elaborated a strategy in 5 key points. In fact, you heard about all these points today, but I will sum them up. They are all interconnected and designed to transform the country's economy in a way that will transform the country's economy in a way that also reinforces Japan's global role by opening opportunities to non-domestic players and by engaging more actively on the global stage. The target and the result is a win-win situation for all stakeholders. I won't develop each of the 5 pillars, of course, but let me sum them up. There are 5. Japanese households, financial institutions, companies, asset management, asset owners. So how does this work? The first pillar is Japanese households. This is the famed doubling of income. How do you do this? 2 key points. Wage growth, and this is something that has restarted in Japan about 3 years ago after more than 2 decades of stagnation, and stock investments. You need to revive the appetite to invest. So you've heard about the large savings in Japan and how to activate them. The NISA program, which has been mentioned earlier, was revamped in January 2024, and to great success. This has triggered a large jump in fresh investment and in fresh investors. The key word here is fresh. To the skeptics, let me say this. Yes, it's true. A lot of these investments go to non-Japanese equities. But again, those are fresh investments, new money. In other words, the pie has now become larger and investment continues to grow, even in domestic shares. And the policy, that is important, the policy has triggered a new appetite for investing, which did not exist until recently. The second pillar is about financial institutions. It's great to encourage investment, but investors must be able to trade in fair and transparent markets and in financial products that suit them. To that effect, the principle for customers' best interest, which is a kind of fiduciary duty concept, have been reinforced, and so have the requirements on financial product governance. Investor protection also requires financial literacy, and last year the JFLEC program was launched. JFLEC stands for Japan Financial Literacy and Education Corporation. It is yet another public-private effort, and it's filled with concrete efforts and actions to raise the financial literacy level in this country. The next pillar is about companies, because of course investing in quality is extremely important. You've all heard about the corporate governance code reforms and the Japan Stock Exchange very active drive to raise the value of listed companies. So that substance is added to form. So here too, results have started to appear, and we can see this through the performance of the stock market. which has now, and the revival of M&A activity in Japan, which has now reached about 2/3 of what is seen in the United States. And incidentally, yesterday's Financial Times reported that the Japanese mega banks now trade at book value, which is the first time in about 10 years. So something is moving. Asset management is the fourth pillar. I'm not going to go through all this. This was the theme of today. But it comes with a broader palette of investment products, new participants, new programs such as the Emerging Managers Program, or the TOKU, the special economic zones that Koike-san mentioned early this afternoon. And this can be done in English, by the way. So the last pillar, you heard also about it, is the asset owner's principles, discussed a little bit earlier by Sugano-san. Those were released only last fall, but they're kicking in already. So with all this, Japan has done more than just laying the basis for further growth. The change has now started for real, irreversibly, in a way that I personally have not seen since the end of the economic bubble in the early 90s. So the trees that were planted over the last few years have started to bear fruit. There will be more. And I'm going to risk mixing all my metaphors here, but this is why this year's forum has been called the Cape of Good Hope. So, trees and boats may not be the same thing, but it's still time to get on board. I encourage you to do so, and don't miss the opportunity to invest. Thank you.
ありがとうございました。拍手でお送りください。
Thank you very much. Could we have a round of applause for the ambassador?